Okay, just another alcohol stove video. In the pot, I've got some grated potato. Now, in order to start this stove up, I first had a little puddle of alcohol under the stove, and I also had a little puddle of alcohol on the ring there, and I lit the alcohol down underneath it, and that started to warm up the alcohol and the stove itself, and also started to ignite the alcohol on the ring there, which helped to raise the temperature of that bit, which was where the alcohol vaporizes, gasifies, or whatever the phrase is, and turned into the flame. This heated the whole thing up much quicker, and it reaches the operating temperature much faster, and so therefore, yes, if you fiddle about with it, you can get much quicker startup time. And I've got a good hope that the potato I'm cooking inside is going to be alright and will make me a nice brunch. So I'm going to come back to that in a few minutes, see how it's getting on. Just quickly to reiterate, the two modifications I made, namely increasing the size of the holes with a drill bit, the size of the holes on the burner itself, and also priming both underneath and around the ring of the stove, seriously has made all the difference. The pot is noticeably hotter. We got a good jet of steam coming out there. I don't know whether you can see that there, but that's pretty amazing. And so it's cooking quite nicely, just because I've primed it better and I've increased the size of the holes. So I'm proud of it again, okay? But if you don't prime it, if you don't increase the size of the jet holes, you may have a problem. Okay, the potato hash worked out okay, but it was a long cooking time. Taking into account its long cooking time, I'm now steaming myself up some onion and broccoli. Completely filled the stove up to the top. Plenty of deliberate spillage around the neck to heat up that bit there where the gas vapors come out, and a bit extra down there to heat the stove up. Got a massive, very dangerous looking priming moment, so to speak, but on the other hand, it's lit. And hey presto, got condensation appearing on the inside of the Perspex lid, Pyrex lid. And I'm just going to leave it. And then in about like 40 minutes, hour's time, we should be like getting there. I've only just lit the bloody thing. Got bubbles appearing. Priming the stove. Seriously, priming the stove is like one of the most important things that you need to do. And this time, you know, I had the stove properly full. Proper full, okay? And it seems to be providing more stable flame as a result. So we'll just see what happens. Okay, I've just checked inside. There's a very good boil going. We got a good jet of steam coming out of the little hole there. You know, it's basically cooking. The only thing that I can assume that's really helped this is increasing those little holes, those little jet holes, and doing proper priming with lots of alcohol spilled everywhere, which is of course quite a dangerous thing to do because you get massive transparent flames. But I'm getting myself a second alcohol stove, which I'm also going to use so I can have like one going for my tea or for the rice, and the other one going for like the rest of the main meal, if you get my drift. Okay, then if I carry on using this steamer, I can have my rice cooking in the bottom, vegetables cooking in the top, next level with my meat, and so on and so forth, and I can start to do proper cooking using off-grid fuel. Okay, the broccoli and onion worked out perfectly, and I mean perfectly soft, delicious, nutritious, lovely. So now I just got some water on for more tea, which I can have after the meal. Still with the existing alcohol which is still in the stove, which is rather a lot. So I did rather well on that particular burning. So just as I've said before, prime the stove properly, make sure it's nice and hot, then make sure your holes are large enough for the gas or the vapor jets to get out of, and then basically you're okay. Obviously I want to do more frying, because that's also an important part of your diet. So I'm getting myself some thin aluminium pans to do that with is another step. on the journey. Okay, now the most recent meal that I've made using my homemade ethanol in that tiny little stove, after I've increased the size of some of the holes that the vapor jets come out of, and I've been priming it through putting a puddle of alcohol underneath it and setting fire to that, and of course, the extra puddle around the rim near the jets themselves. I put in 120 milliliters, which is what's required. And after having made the meal, which was the wonderful broccoli and onions cooked in a steamer, I had enough heat left over to make a nice cup of tea for myself, and there was still about that much visible in the bottom of the little stove. So a pessimistic quantity of alcohol used for, let's say, cooking for 2 people could be about 120 milliliters for that meal for 2 people, hypothetically. Especially if you're using a steamer, which would require less fuel because you can do like lots of food all in one go in a steamer. So with stovetop cooking, I think you could get away with 1/4 of a liter of bioethanol every day to cook for 2 people. Now, taking that into account, that's an approximate figure, of course. I can't give you a precise figure. Your amounts will go up and down depending upon what you're cooking, how you're cooking it, number of people you're making tea for, and so on and so forth. There's a website here called econol.co.uk, ECONOL, and they're doing 100 litres of bioethanol for £195, including delivery. So that would be, 100 litres multiplied by 4, that's 400 days worth. If you think about cooking for lunch and supper, not necessarily breakfast, okay? That could be 400 days worth of cook fuel. If you're using that fuel to heat your house as well, you'd need an awful lot more. But essentially, less than £200 to cook all your meals in an off-grid type buying fuel and then using it on site yourself type system doesn't seem too bad. If you think about how much money you earn in a year, £200, it's not necessarily all that extreme. It's less than £5 a week. If you take into account a 52-week year, which is how many weeks there are in a year, and you're paying, say, £200. Obviously it isn't, it's £195. If it was £200, it'll be £3.84 per week for the cost of your cook fuel if you're using a stove twice a day. That's not too bad, realistically speaking. So bulk buying would work and would be quite a usable system if that's what you wanted to do as far as being off-grid. This type of fuel that they're selling, it's supposed to be very, very pure, so there's no reason why you shouldn't be able to use that in a stove. Yeah. So you can use that stuff in your fireplace and your stove as well. Maybe you'd need to use twice again to keep your place nice and hot if you were just using ethanol. But of course you probably wouldn't be in a proper off-grid setting. You would need to have a wide variety of different technologies, including wood fire. You would probably need coal, or any other form of solid fuel that you can lay your hands on. You'd probably use gas as well, temporarily speaking, possibly use biodiesel as another means of generating heat. So ethanol is still one good viable contender, so do bear that in mind.